G'day, this is Brian Medway from Grace, Canberra, and from Crosslink Christian Network, and I'm talking about building your story so that your story becomes a useful tool, a readily accessible tool to be able to bring the presence of God to somebody else. You mightn't think that the presence of God is brought by a story, but let me tell you, the presence of God is brought by a story, again and again and again and again and again. So why should we be surprised that God couldn't use our story of His grace working in our lives? Now, I've just used a word called grace. If I said that in my story, I experienced the grace of God. Sorry, nobody understands what that is. And if I have to find another way of saying grace, the grace of God to me. Now, the grace of God to me is, God showed amazing favour and love to me because I just ignored Him for 19 years of my life. And when I show up one day and say, "Oh God, I'd love to know you if that's possible," He didn't say, "What about these 19 years?" No, He says, "Hey, come on, Brian. I can make myself known to you. We can walk this journey together. You can be my son. I can be your father." Boom. So there you go. So we're talking about these kind of things, and I'm going to get to we talked about the three parts of the story. Start with the end, then go back to the beginning and work your way to the end. And I just talked about my story. Then we talked about some other things like that. Now I want to talk about the last thing about this thing in terms of building your story, and that is you want to when you've finished getting a story together and so forth, you've written it out in full. Then you've reduced it down to what serves the narrative, what keeps the story going toward its end, and this all has to happen in 2 minutes. 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, no more. So when you do that, I want you to think about having a headline for your story. Now, because here's a headline about the Titanic, and Titanic sinks, 1,500 die. That's the headline. But then it has a little précis, like a little introductory thing. In fact, it's got a whole bunch of them here. And probably that wouldn't be the way they would do it today. Carpathia picks up 675 out of 2,200, races for New York, survivors mostly women and children. So what we have, Titanic sinks. That's the headline. That just, bang, that tells you, what this thing's about in two or three words. And we all know that headlines are very important for newspapers because they grab people's attention. Now, we're not trying to manipulate or hype anybody, but it is helpful if we can just simply refer to our story with a headline. And so I want you to be a bit creative. Think of yourself as, the editor of the local newspaper, and here's your headline, and the headline decides whether somebody's going to read your story or not, according to their interest. Okay, and there are amazing headlines. I used to be I used to visit the Northern Territory regularly, and the NT News is an amazing newspaper, and it's so funny because they just have these amazing headlines, and they're really funny, and the stories are amazing as well. And they like stories about car accidents, crocs, and other things. So they tell stories in a really funny way, and people all over the world read the NT News. You wouldn't imagine that could be so, but it is so. And the reason is because they just have these crazy headlines. And now it's not like New Idea or something where the headline has nothing to do with the reality. They do have headlines, croc bites boat, and some crocodile that attacked a boat in the harbour. So think of your story as a headline, okay? So my story, as I've told you before, if you've watched these other videos, my story, it talks about the fact that inside I was always fighting with myself, and when I came to know Jesus, I discovered that A, I was okay as a person, B, I had a vocation, and that vocation was not trying to be somebody else, it was becoming who God was making me to be. And so here's one of my headlines. I can think of a number. The fight is over. No more fighting. All right, and then I'd say, and my précis would be, I used to fight with myself all the time until I found that I was born to be created to be a son of God. Or that's a bit wordy, but I'm just saying that's a headline and a précis, then the content. So because your headline is going to be something you can drop there. We're going to talk about that in a little while, or some down the track in some other videos. But the important thing is that you can just simply pop that out there, and I'm talking to somebody and say, well, I stopped fighting with myself. I started discovering that I was somebody worthwhile. Now, how many people don't think that they're okay? How many people think that they're subworthy or whatever else like that, and they're always trying to spend money on their appearance or on their clothing or on their get some sort of car or whatever to try and prove who they are? Whatever. That's everybody. That's so many people. So just imagine what amazing news it is that something can happen to you and you then are not trying to be somebody else. You're discovering who you really were created to be. Think about being created to be something and somebody, and it's not somebody else. It's not somebody in a magazine or whatever. It's actually you. That you are the star of your own created format. And this is God. So God didn't make a mistake when he created you. In fact, he was doing something wonderful. But we've been messed up. So, I was messed up. I just hated myself. I was always fighting with myself. I was always fighting with other people because I wasn't satisfied. And then I discovered that I was acceptable. I was okay. And it was quite fantastic. It was wonderful being me. And so I spent the next 50 years discovering me. And Jesus, of course, says that. He says, what shall it profit a person if he gains the whole world and loses the opportunity to know himself? So here's the deal. So just get the headline, get the précis, precise. Maybe I haven't got that right. Anyway, forgive me if it isn't. And then the content. So you've got these things down, and you can draw on these anywhere, anytime, underwater, in your sleep. I'm just making jokes now. But so that your story is a tool of trade. And the tool of trade is this family business we're in. Our family business is looking for lost family members, helping them to find where home is. I'm a son of God. That's who I am. That's who I was always born to be. And now that I'm, home in the family, I'm involved in the family business. And the family business I discovered was helping people to figure out where home was. What a great idea. God bless you. I'll talk to you in the next video.